Cyclone Nation, what better way to kick off the 2025 college football season than cheering on your Cyclones in the Aer Lingus College Football Classic in Dublin, Ireland? Whether it's a quick trip to Dublin for the game, a multi-city adventure throughout the Irish countryside, or premium game day hospitality, there is a package for you. Visit cyclones2ireland.com for information on official travel and hospitality packages. That's Cyclones, the number 2, Ireland.com.
Welcome in to Kickin' It. This is it still a Victory Monday?
Haven't lost yet.
Do we count this? They weren't going to count this as a Victory Monday. Iowa State was obviously idle this week. They had a bye. I am here with Grant Mahoney, Aiden White behind the boards. We're in the Wild Rose Casino studios. We are brought to you by Kelderman Manufacturing. I wonder, what do you think the RV folks, if you're an RV folks, an RV lot person, do you just for the sake of like the ritual, like, you were saying superstitious last week where you took a sip of your beer or whatever alcoholic beverage you had, your honey infused whiskey. Do you think the RV folks that are superstitious on a bye week would spend Friday night just in the RV for the sake of keeping the good juju? Would you do that?
If I were to have a spot in the RV lot and have an RV, I would rent out my home for football season and I would live in the RV.
Yes. Yeah. But not have any water in it and just become like Walter White without the drug dealing.
Yeah. And I would just have a bunch of meat from the Iowa pork producers and just be cooking bacon and ham steaks and pork chops.
Making a whole bunch of meat.
Yeah.
Just a whole bunch of meat. Well, anyway, Kelderman.com.
Find what kind of roadkill I can find and cook it up.
So one of the one of the nice things about a bye week when you're undefeated is that the problems that you're encountering are real champagne problems. And this is a wild experience to be in for me as a fan generally, because I don't know about you guys, but I mean, Aiden, you're a Chicago sports fan broadly. So kind of by the teams that you're rooting for, you tend to root for underdogs. I don't have like one hard team that I root for in most leagues. Like, oh, I'm a, whatever, Vikings fan. I'll kind of, I don't know, based on what Iowa State players are there, if I know anybody on the teams or what style of play they have, I kind of root for a different team each kind of. So right now I would say I'm a Lions fan because Montgomery and it's Detroit and that story and them being good. And I would say I'm a Bills fan too.
He threw for a touchdown.
He did. Quarterback David Montgomery. Okay. But like I would say Lions and Bills are kind of the two teams that I root for this year. So why
the Bills?
Because they haven't won one ever. And they lost 4 straight in the mid-90s. Okay. So like they just have a...
And no one circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills.
I thought you were going to say because of AJ. I was like, oh, he retired.
Well, AJ did retire, but AJ was on the Bills. That was fun. But just underdogs. So I tend to root for underdogs. So me, having gone to and played for Iowa State, underdog, outside of mostly men's basketball and some wrestling over the course of time, haven't really had a lot of... cross country, but like the sports that I did or know anything about, you haven't really had like a lot of time where you're riding high this late into the season. So this is a weird experience for me because I am an underdog fan. And so I don't get to experience this a lot. So it's been nice to have these champagne problems. I don't know. Have you, in any of your athletic experiences, have you experienced something like this so far, whether it's fandom or participating?
Yeah. High school, we had a really good basketball team. We won state my junior year. So, I mean, we were just kicking the crap out of people. And
did you guys play Barnes? Did you guys play Harrison Barnes? Was that...
No, that was the year after me.
Okay.
Yeah, he was a few years behind me. And then the year...
With Dougie McBuckets?
Yeah, the year that I left, my high school played Ames in the championship game and lost.
It's because you left.
No, it's because...
Machine Gun Mahoney wasn't there.
No, it's because the best player on our team decided to have a party where he lived next door to a cop.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and so he got busted and did not play in the championship game, and Linmar lost by enough to be like, oh, if you played, they would have won.
Dougie McBuckets and Harrison Barnes also had something to do with that.
Yeah, they were good.
But anyway, so thing I was talking about, trying to bring up with the bye week while you're undefeated into November. Iowa State will be an undefeated football team in November, which is wild.
I like the optimism. I see where you're saying that an undefeated team going into November.
Yeah, they're going to play on November 2nd.
You said they're an undefeated team in November, which technically they are. The way I took that was like through November, which that'd be
pretty optimistic. They're going to be favored pretty big in most of the games in November.
Every game.
Because they play K-State in December?
Last weekend.
Last week in November?
Last
First
week in
of
November, I think.
Either way, like up until that point, they're going to be pretty heavy favorites for the remainder of the games.
It's November 30th.
Okay, so that's up until that Kansas State game. They're going to be probably double-digit favorites, is my guess.
Sure, yeah.
Depending on what, I don't know, Utah's probably going to be, I don't think Rising's going to come back. So their offense is probably going to be what it is.
He's come back for his 9th year.
Are you serious?
No, they didn't announce it. They said he could.
Oh, it's too many years.
Get a job, kid.
Too many years. Lots of people go to college for 7 years.
Yep, they're called doctors. He needs lots of oil he needs like a hip and knee replacement. The last game I saw, why is this guy out there? He looks like he should be in a wheelchair right now. Like he looks like he is in line to get a hip replacement.
It's a lot of toil on your body.
And being 28 like he is, like he's getting old.
It's like watching a dog at the end of.
Where it can't get into the truck by itself. You have to pick it up.
Yeah. It's like, hey, here he is.
Come on.
And he just kind of.
Smoky.
The black and brown, it's just all gray. And then
Come on,
skin
Smoky.
is now lumpy.
Talking about Cam Rising's lumpy skin.
His eyes are all fogged over and missing teeth.
It's just sad to watch.
It's just he's got to have multiple. Someone has to chew his food before he gets in there. It's just like a baby bird. Anyway,
what a tangent.
The things that Iowa State fans are worried about right now are understandable things because this is sort of uncharted territory. So like, you're running a race and you've run some races before. You've always been in the middle of the pack, and all of a sudden you're running a race and everybody's behind you, and you're like, what is happening? Did I do something wrong? And now you're looking around for something I don't want to say something to complain about, but something that's like, what do we do here? And one of the things that is natural is, and honestly, I don't think it's a bad thing because of the ammunition that it gives the coaching staff. Iowa State has gone from 9th to 10th to 11th in the AP polls over the course of the last few weeks.
And did you see that Malik Verdon, when they went from 9 to 10 after beating UCF, he quote tweeted it and put like LOL or a laughing emoji, something. So
yeah,
they're seeing
it's there. And so then kind of the disrespect angle, the coaches get a play. But as a fan, how much stock should you put in this? I would say very little.
And I just keep winning. Keep winning and it'll play out.
To that extent, how many teams finished last season, including after the conference championships, with 0 or 1 loss? How many teams in all of college football, including the non-Power 5, all of college football finished with 0 or 1 losses last season after conference championship Saturday?
2 or 3.
8 total with 0 or 1 losses. So there's the Michigan, your Michigan, Ohio State, Texas, Georgia, Alabama, Florida State,
Liberty,
and then I'm missing
James Madison.
And then, James Madison. No, it wasn't James Madison. There's one other one in there. I forget. Anyway, there's 8 teams as far as counting. So if Iowa State finishes the year, presumably just like by mathematics, where did Iowa State start this season? So Ohio State
is the top 10.
Okay, Oregon was the other one.
Yeah.
So Michigan, Washington, and Washington. Yeah, Michigan, Washington, Texas, Alabama, Florida State, Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon. Ohio State and Liberty. Those are the only 8. Oregon had 2 losses. So those, if you finish with 0 or 1 loss, you're going to be realistically in the top 8-ish. So unless you get absolutely obliterated,
or your name's Notre Dame, and then it doesn't matter if you lose to a bad MAC team.
Well, let's say even with NIU or with Notre Dame and they lose to Northern Illinois, if they only have 1 loss in the schedule, that would put them in that 8 or less teams that have 1 loss. So like if you have 0 or 1 loss by the end of the year, the way everything shakes out, you're going to be probably inside the top 7 or 8 teams. Just mathematically, teams will have to play each other and other teams will lose. So take care of business, win the games, and it doesn't matter. So the conversation could be had. Where is the Big 12 going to be a 2-bid league at the end of the year? And I don't know. I don't. If BYU and Iowa State are undefeated going into conference let's say, because I think that's the only way that you get 2 teams in.
Yeah.
Unless there's like a Colorado, doesn't lose, and they just keep kicking the shit out of people, and they play Iowa State, and it's like a triple overtime, and Iowa State's only loss is like a triple overtime conference championship loss, then maybe you still get 2. But like BYU and Iowa State, presumably, if they're undefeated, as long as it's a close game, I would think that both are in just based on that last math of very few teams have a 0 or 1 loss.
We would hope so, but I also think that could come from a slight biased perception because the Big 12 has such a negative, weak conference throughout. Because I think the SEC is overrated. They've got a couple good teams, but Alabama lost to Vandy, and these other teams, Arkansas beat someone. Arkansas lost to Oklahoma State, who's 0-5 in the Big 12. So it's like the Big 12 perception is that it's a weak conference. There's no...
But I think that's the media perception. And so I'll be interested. So next Tuesday, so a week from... most people are going to be listening to this on Tuesday or Wednesday of the week of Halloween, as the week of the Texas Tech game. So the Tuesday after the Texas Tech game is when the first CFP rankings come out. I will be interested...
5th?
I don't remember, whatever it is, whatever date that is. So when they come out, 2 things. 1, Iowa State still might be ranked lower than what we want them to be. Like Iowa State and Indiana are sort of like the brothers in arms of like the under-respected, and BYU. The under-respected, undefeated, what else do you want us to do? I mean, Indiana kicked the living piss out of Nebraska.
Everyone. They're beating the crap out of everyone.
And so where are they getting the respect? All that kind of stuff. Those teams still might be lower than you think, but also the playoff, different than the AP poll, they will actually watch. The teams that are somewhere in the top 20 or 25, they'll actually watch them versus the AP poll. I think Williams a couple weeks back did like a understanding of like how the AP poll works. It's literally just a writer who's way overworked, who has no capacity for even possibly watching or paying attention to anything else. So they just kind of scan through the scoring results and think, oh, Iowa State lost to or barely beat UCF, downgrade.
There was one guy this week that had K-State at 18 last week. K-State won this week, and he didn't have them ranked this week.
So there's no possible way that you can watch all the games. So you have some slappy who doesn't really know what he's doing and then just kind of accumulates it all, and then they just put those all together, but they never actually watch. Even the people even the teams that are in the quote top, like they might watch Ohio State and Alabama, and that's it. And so then they're going to give them the default because they actually watch those games and go, wow, those teams are good. So the AP poll, the way that one works, is fundamentally different than the way the CFP poll works. Because of that, the CFP might still rank Iowa State like 9th, 10th, whatever, even if they beat Texas Tech and some other teams lose. But there also are shown that if you, throughout the rest of the season, win or you have a really strong performance, they're not opposed to moving a team up like 4 spots, 5 spots in a week. If you really say, hey, let's say they're watching, I don't know, pick BYU, for example, and they say that, oh, they've got trouble scoring against good secondaries or something like that, and that's the knock on them. Well, then they play a good secondary and they score a bunch on that secondary. The committee will go, we were wrong about this weakness. Let's move them up, because they actually watch then the games that are in the top 15, 20, 25. So whenever the CFP rankings come out, 1, don't overreact to those either. And 2, that's the one that you would really want to track to see how the movement goes from one to the other. But the moral of the story is Iowa State's in control of their own destiny with really, obviously anyone can lose to anyone, as evidenced by the Tennessee, Arkansas, and the Alabama, Vanderbilt, and whatever. All of that can happen. But Iowa State should be heavy favorites, and if they take care of business for the next 4 weeks, they should win all of those games leading into a really big one against Kansas State, which again, they should win by probably Vegas odds at home. That's really the one that you go, okay, let's do that. You don't want to look ahead, obviously, but that's where, I don't know, win and you control your own destiny. It's not something I'm spending any mental energy at all worrying about where Iowa State's ranked.
I'm just enjoying week by week. A Kansas State loss, another Kansas State loss is something that Iowa State needs. So whether that's from Iowa State or from Houston, if Houston knocks off Kansas State this week, Iowa State needs Kansas State to lose a second game, because then that gives Iowa State a cushion where if they lose another game, they just have to beat Kansas State.
Honestly, I'm torn on that too, because so let's say the main knock as far as
Kansas State has to lose another game, or Iowa State has to beat Kansas State. Because if Iowa State goes into Kansas State undefeated, Kansas State's only lost 1. If Kansas State beats Iowa State, Kansas State has to head over Iowa State, and then their only loss is to BYU. So it'd be BYU and Kansas State in the championship.
And well, yes, but then just again just win and you're in.
Yep.
And that doesn't really.
But then an 11-1 Iowa State game being left out of an 11-1 Iowa State team being left out of the Big 12 championship game probably
would suck. Yeah.
Probably would not make the CFP.
Probably that would suck. But also, we don't know what would happen on BYU and Colorado. Like, we don't know what's going to be on the other side for the rest of the season.
I think Colorado they would need a few things they would need Iowa State and Kansas State to lose multiple games for them to fall in.
But either way, I think you want. So if Kansas State, as far as like best case scenario, I think for me, best case scenario to get marquee eyeballs on it, Colorado. To get quality win would mean BYU as the other half of it. And then Kansas State having one extra loss. So they come into it with 2 losses in the conference, and Iowa State has 0 losses. Then you're more or less guaranteed to be above Kansas State, Colorado, wherever tiebreakers, and figure that out. But you also don't want Kansas State to lose like 3 in a row, because you need, as far as quality wins.
I do, but yeah.
I mean, for Iowa State's sake, you want them to be as good as they can, for the same reason that it's better for Iowa State if Iowa doesn't lose for the rest of the year, because then they'll find their way into the top 25. That win looks even better and better and better. The more they win, it looks worse and worse and worse the more they lose. So teams that you've already played, you want to do well, and teams that you're going to play, you want to be as quality as you can. So I don't know. Kansas State does well until Iowa State. Cool. It's a marquee win when you beat them. If Kansas State loses once or twice, cool. You get buffer into the Big 12. It doesn't really matter. Like, doesn't make a shit one way or the other. So the moral of the story, the long answer to it, or the short answer to the long ramble, is I wouldn't put any stock in it. Now Campbell can say they disrespect us. They don't believe in us. They can play that. You can play that card even if you're undefeated. And you control your own destiny. So like, win and you're in. That's the end of it.
Yeah. And I think that this bye week came at a perfect time though, because Texas Tech is sputtering, and their starting quarterback got dinged up last game, and they brought in a true freshman who looked fine, but it was almost like Williams and Bloom talked about this on the Williams and Bloom Sunday podcast, where it was almost like when Brock Purdy came in the Oklahoma State game, Oklahoma State didn't know who Purdy was, and he just gave a jolt of energy to the team. And
difference is Brock won.
Correct. Yes, and he's a dog, and this guy, he's good. He's good, but he's no Brock Purdy. But he looked really good for about a quarter, and then once TCU kind of settled into his tendencies, that kind of didn't take him out of the game, but stopped what he was wanting to do. But this kid has also not faced the John Haycock defense,
right? And I think there's a fine line, because the UCF quarterback, Iowa State didn't have any film on him, so they couldn't see what he was good or bad at. And if you could see what he was good or bad at, you would then say, make this dude throw the ball.
He was also, a really good runner, which is been Iowa State's Achilles heel so far this year.
Yeah. And I don't know if this Texas Tech kid is or not.
He had eight attempts for 16 yards and a touchdown.
So fine, I guess.
I'm guessing those are probably busted play, scramble. You're a true freshman. You're back there. You crapped your pants. Oh God, no one's open. Run for 4 yards.
And I think the thing that, looking at Texas Tech specifically, because we can move from the rankings thing into Texas Tech. The thing that I'm looking at specifically with Texas Tech is the fact that they have the worst pass defense in the Big 12.
In the country, I think.
So, Aiden, you want to pull that for the country for sure? I know it's for sure the worst in the Big 12, and it's not close. Like they are easily the worst in the Big 12.
I think they are the worst in the country, and then they are second to worst in the country in total defense.
Yeah,
maybe it's the conference, but I thought it was the country.
But either way, offensively, Iowa State has a distinct advantage when Iowa State's offense is on the field versus Texas Tech's defense. And I think with a week off, to get guys like Bramer healthy, hopefully, to get guys like Hansen likely, to get
even Rocco. I think
Rocco's
shoulder's been hurting him so far this year.
At a 133rd in the country, Texas Tech is giving up 308 passing yards per game.
On average.
Would you guys like to guess where Iowa State is?
Number 1.
They are number 2.
Number 2.
Who's number 1?
Washington.
Washington?
Yeah,
Washington.
Well,
when you play Iowa.
Yeah, they can't throw the ball. They gave up like 300 rushing yards to Iowa, so it's a little bit of a thing. I mean, granted, Iowa State gave up almost 400 yards to UCF, so who are we talking? But the thing with Texas Tech, Iowa State, presumably, once this feels like a very classic Professor's Gambit game to me. You have a freshman quarterback. Iowa State doesn't have any film on this kid, but this kid has never played against a defense that is as fast and confusing as this one is. That there are people kind of coming from everywhere. I think the coverage between Tez Williams and Darian Porter is still somehow underrated. How Darian Porter, yesterday I was kind of kicking around and like every once in a while I'll just check like draft grades and whatever. And Darian Porter's not even listed on PFFs. I have this sneaking suspicion he's going to make his way to the combine and just rip apart the combine.
Yeah.
So I feel like with as good as he's played, that's another thing where you can, between Tez and Darian Porter, you've got two guys that can match up really well with anyone that Texas Tech, really anybody in the country is going to throw out against them. And then the safeties can take a lot of the swings that they might want to take, where Bo can play up really aggressively in the running game, or Verdun can do the same thing with whether it's if they have a big tight end or a slot receiver, and then Cooper can play underneath some passes and gamble on that because they have those good corners. So
they do have one big receiver,
which Darian Porter's 6'3", 6'4".
Caleb Douglas, he's number 5. He's 6'4". He's kind of their Jaden Higgins, if you will.
Okay. I mean, not to say that. So Aiden pulled something up here, and so this is through PFF, which again, I don't necessarily know if it's like the God's honest truth.
Some of the stuff that they like calculate, it's like, why would you calculate number of passes you've defended on 3rd and 7 to 14 between weeks 11 and 16?
And
like, what are we doing?
You can kind of, so anyway,
against left-handed quarterbacks.
So the statistic through PFF is the lowest passer rating allowed among Power 4 cornerbacks. Number 5, Jamari Harris, who is probably, he's for Iowa. He's probably an NFL corner. He's the next.
Number 4. There's number 4.
Number 4. Number 3, Charles Brantley. For Michigan State. Nope. Brantley. That's terrible. And then Zay Alexander for LSU. And number 1, Darian Porter's average lowest passer rating allowed per PFF is 0.4, which essentially means you're not completing anything.
Let's just go through them. I mean, 0.4. Number 2 guy is 2.0, and then bumps up to Charles Barkley at 12.6, and then
2.8 for
2.8.
2.8. Yeah, it's small. And then the guy from Iowa is 14.7. So like number 1 is at 0.4, and number 4 is at 14.7.
So like he is really
you
good.
guys stink.
He is really good, and I feel like that's the thing that it's still somehow getting underrated. But I think the pass defense that Iowa State has, Texas Tech, if they've watched anyone else play Iowa State, which is they have, you're going to need to run the ball. And I think Iowa State will probably have a better opportunity to stop the run against a team like Texas Tech than a team like UCF, because UCF is focused 1,000% hook, line, and sinker, run the ball. Texas Tech is going to try and throw it a little bit too. So it
Not
feels like
so fast, my friend.
What?
It's going to be shit weather. They have Taj Brooks is their running back. He's one of the better running backs in the country, really, but in the conference. He's top 3, I think, in yards. He's had 100 yards rushing every game. Again, it's going to be crappy weather. It's supposed to be 55-ish and rainy. This true freshman quarterback is going to throw 2 picks, one of them to Tez. And then Taj...
He gets his 5th game in a row?
Well, he's going to get his 5th game in a row, but he's going to get 5 and 6. So Tez is going to have 2 picks this game.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, he's going to throw a total of 3 picks. But Taj Brooks, he's not going to have 100 yards this game, prediction.
Okay. I think
but they're going to want to. They're going to want to until they're down by 17 points and like, oh, we got to throw. And then
that's where the interceptions come.
That's when the interceptions come.
Grant Stradamus. This one, it's interesting to me because Iowa State matches up as I would say poorly, and this is sort of retrospect because, you know, we were on the saying that like Iowa State would run away from UCF. I don't know if it's necessarily run away, but like the game would be close and then it would kind of split as the game kind of went 3rd and 4th quarter.
Boy, were we wrong.
Didn't happen there. But as much as a matchup disadvantage stylistically as Iowa State and UCF were, it feels like Iowa State stylistically matches up well against Texas Tech. However, Texas Tech, for whatever reason, over the last few years has played Iowa State really well. So it's not something you can say like Iowa State's just going to come out and roll their helmets out and go. So I think that back to the rankings thing, it might be a good thing that you have to, I don't want to say like get style points, but you can't overlook anyone because the teams are not, the voters or whatever are not respecting you. I don't expect Iowa State to come out flat in this to give Texas Tech the opportunity to have this like hang around to the middle of the 3rd quarter type thing. Because if that's the case, it's anybody's game. If you're in the middle of the 3rd quarter, just like with UCF, granted 2 pick sixes will do that. But like when you do that and you allow a team to be in the game, then you just open the door for that to be a really close game. So I feel like this is one they're going to come out of it healthier, more able to do the things they want to do because guys like Brazino will be healthier. Guys like, Carson Hansen should be healthier. You're going to have everybody more back to health.
I think Dylan Barrett was kind of dinged up too on the O-line.
Yeah. And then 61.
That's him.
Is that him? Yeah. So it feels like this is a good situation for Iowa State.
Well, also, I believe Texas Tech is on a 2-game winning streak against Iowa State. They did, last time they played was in 2022.
Which was,
yep.
I went to that one.
They won.
Aiden, were you at that game? You were in the box probably.
I was working for Cyclones TV at the time.
So you were with John and Eric?
No, so we would do a pregame show.
So for the record, this is to color this. Let me take a step back for a second. This was the game. It was like 11 degrees and like sleety rain, snow for this one.
So we would do a pregame show that I was kind of the producer, director, whatever you want to call it, inside the stadium with Noah Wolf and Ryan Harklaw.
Oh, sure.
And they canceled it being outdoors that day because it was so cold. Obviously, they still had it indoors, but that eliminated my position for the day. So I'm like, oh, can I go follow one of the photog people and just learn about that for the day, trying to be a sponge. And of course, it was negative 75 degrees on the field. I was so cold. I'm like, why did I do this? I could have sat in the press box. Oh my God.
And I remember that was the game.
Horrible game.
And that was the game. It was like 11-8 or some.
Yeah, it was
some.
I remember
low,
I was
14-10.
Iowa State got within the 10 like 4 times and didn't score.
And there was one where they ran the same play 3 plays in a row and got stuffed. That was the quintessential 2022 game. That was just everything went wrong.
But then the game prior to that Iowa State lost.
79-yard field goal.
Yes. So to, I guess, to circle back around.
Is that kid still in the league?
I don't think he ever made it to the league.
I thought he got drafted.
He wasn't very good.
Oh.
No, he was one of those kids that...
He's the greatest kicker I've ever seen.
Well, he was the greatest kicker on that kick. But I think he went on to miss like his next 6 kicks. All within 30 yards. No, I don't know that. But he didn't get drafted. He wasn't that good.
Okay.
But anyways, Iowa State's coming off a 2-game losing streak to them, which I hope that plays into it. I think Joey McGuire was the coach. That was his first year, was this Blizzard game.
Yeah. It's not going to be that bad of weather. And I also feel like...
But I hope that Campbell uses that as motivation. We go out there and just beat their dicks off. So
Weird phrase.
Just beat them badly.
Weird phrasing.
Beat their butts.
Butts. Better? Is that better?
Sure.
I don't know. I think there's going to be more, especially on Cyclone Fanatic for the rest of the week, kind of breaking the Texas Tech game. One of the other things that I was interested in for this week, because I honestly haven't watched Texas Tech. This is just kind of looking at stats a little bit. But one of the other things that's interesting, so if we're going back to the rankings thing, what is your rooting interest for the back half of the season with these top 4 teams?
I don't really care. Iowa State win. Just that's all I care about. Go undefeated. I'm a little not disappointed, but just kind of like that Colorado keeps winning. Because I was very much, my heels were dug in that these guys were not good, and they just keep winning.
12 can play, man.
He can.
12 can play.
He's a baller. What I have seen, though, is that when he gets put up against good competition, he gets an injury and sits out. I have noticed that. So I want to see him. Him against Higgins, I'm taking Higgins. I don't care. I'm biased. I'm taking Higgins.
That would be fun, especially because you'd have him on both sides of the ball. So you have him covering Higgins and Knoll, and then you have him running routes against Porter and Williams.
Yeah, I think that Iowa State would lock his ass up on both ends, on both sides.
I mean, lock up. It feels like contain. Feels like a better.
Yeah, he'd have less than 70 yards receiving. I'm not sold on Kansas State. They have snuck out some wins. They snuck out last week versus Kansas.
Which that game, I watched that on recording today, or at least
Johnson's not a quarterback.
I mean, he's
a running back.
He's getting better, but it's not near good yet as far as throwing. He's good at creating plays, but he's also one of the adages whenever I actually call a game, which if you're interested, tune in on Saturday. Drake is the undefeated in conference. Drake Bulldogs are hosting the have not won a game Marist Red Foxes. But the game, whenever I'm calling a game, one of the phrases that I like to use all the time is don't make a bad play worse. Where if something's negative, someone busted a protection or someone you ran the wrong route, or someone ran the wrong route and you're trying to throw it to him, or you blew a coverage or something like that. Don't make a bad play. Someone blew that protection. There's a defensive lineman running right at you. Don't try and like hold the ball out and like stiff arm a 330-pound defensive lineman right in his face and then get the ball smacked out by a defensive end because you're trying to make a play, or throw it off someone's head and whatever. Like, don't make that a bad play worse. I think that's the thing that Avery Johnson struggles with the most, is he'll make a bad play worse, where he is his desire is to be such a playmaker that when he's making those plays, 75% of the time he's making that play. 25% of the time he's making a bad play into a disaster. So there was two what are you doing turnovers. One was a fumble and one was an interception for Kansas State against Kansas. And now Kansas, their record says they're worse than they are, but they're still not very good when compared, especially at home. Granted, rivalry game, but their offense is so, Kansas State's, their offense is so inconsistent outside of DJ Giddens that, like, I don't trust them a lot in most situations, but it's still Chris Kleiman and like they're going to do well. But I don't know. They're not the juggernaut style team that people kind of expected them to be offensively. They are a do what they need to do to win the game type team, except when those mistakes compound like they did against BYU.
I think Avery Johnson's game is similar to my golf game in that he's not a quarterback in the sense that I'm not a golfer, but then he'll have one, 40-yard pass where it's like, whoa, great pass. I have one drive that goes straight. I'm like, I can do this. I'm a golfer. I have one, 14-foot putt that just kind of goes in. I'm like, oh, I'm a golfer. I can putt. I'm not a golfer. He's in a quarterback. That's my comparison.
Great analogy, Grant. That's my thing.
I tried to dive into Jeff's junk for a second and,
It's a smelly place to be.
I'm staying the hell away from Jeff's junk.
Don't you talk about that way. That is a topic that we like to hang out in, is Jeff's junk.
Speak for yourself.
Oh, it's not junk.
I mean, yeah, Kansas State's got quite a few dinguses on their team.
Yeah, the Aer Lingus College Football Classic. If you're interested in the Aer Lingus College Football Classic and winning yourself 2 passes to Ireland, you need to register by October 31st. That is 2 days from now, right?
It's Halloween, spooky season, man.
It's Wednesday. That was a bad one. Wednesday.
No, it's not Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Halloween's on Thursday.
Anyway, you've got to reserve. Go to cyclones2ireland.com/win, WIN, and you can win yourself 2 passes to the College Football Classic by Aer Lingus. Don't be a dingus. Book with Aer Lingus.
That's right, man. That's going to be a fun game to open up the season next year.
I saw one thing where it is possible, very unlikely, but possible that Iowa State plays Kansas State 4 consecutive games.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. They're not going to play in the college football playoffs.
The likelihood is very, very low. In order for that to happen, then Iowa State has to, Kansas State would
BYU would have to lose twice.
BYU would have to lose twice. Then Iowa State would have to lose and Colorado would have to lose twice. And then Iowa State, Colorado would have to lose it one more time.
Colorado's out. They're out unless.
Because Kansas State beat Colorado.
Yes. So Kansas State would need to lose a few more times. Iowa State would lose twice. The world will need to end. And Colorado's out. I'm calling out. Colorado's out. It's between BYU, Kansas State, and Iowa State.
So I was just trying to come up with the math for it, which BYU needs to lose twice because that would get them out of a tiebreaker with Kansas State. Or would it? They would have to lose 3 more times. They would have to lose 3 times.
Why?
Because then Iowa State, in order to get an at-large, you're not going to have a 1-loss or 2-loss at-large from the Big 12. So
No. So BYU would lose twice. They're out. Iowa State would come in. Kansas State would beat Iowa State.
Then they each have 1 loss.
And then Iowa State would beat them.
But then they would have 2 losses. There's no way a 2-loss team is going to get into an at-large. So Iowa State would have to be undefeated going into the thing and then lose the conference championship game to Kansas State, which then gives Kansas State the automatic bid.
So BYU did lose 3 games, yeah.
Yeah, and then the next game then. So yeah, it's messy. But anyway.
Bollocks.
They would theoretically play 4 consecutive games, which could you imagine just the amount of I feel like game 1 would just be piss and vinegar, which is going to be Farmageddon this year.
I would unblock everyone on Kansas State on Twitter that I've got blocked from Kansas State and just throw out heat.
And then the second game would be the Big 12 championship. Even more fire. college football classic, we might be running out of fire a little bit.
You're missing the college football playoffs.
College football playoff. It's a college football playoff, but you're kind of running out of fire a little bit.
They wouldn't be 4 teams. They wouldn't be 4 games in a row. Then
it would be Iowa State or Kansas State's.
Yeah.
It would be their
one of their teams. This isn't going to happen. Dumb scenario.
It's fun to think about. It's a bye week. What else is?
Yeah.
It's game week. Last week was bye week. Now it's game week.
It was a bye week.
What time is it? Game time.
We can talk about
defense.
how Iowa State's never been 8-0 and has a very realistic chance of going 8-0.
Which is really cool.
Really cool.
Have they released any more details on the Arrowhead game, Aiden?
Kansas is trying to book that as early in the morning as possible because the Chiefs have a game the next day.
Yeah, so they announced Big 12 kickoffs today, and Iowa State, Kansas is a 6-day
Flex.
It's 6-day flex, so it's probably going to be 11 a.m.
Probably
on
Fox or FS1
or 11 a.m. or noon or whatever it is.
They're talking like they want to make it like 9 o'clock.
Yeah,
There's no way.
Well, the only way that would be possible with TV stuff, I think, would be ESPN Plus.
There's no way.
If it's getting Fox or FS1, that makes you think it's not going to be.
There's no way. It'll be at 11 o'clock or noon. It might be the first window, which is fine.
Yeah.
It gives Iowa State a chance to celebrate the power and light afterwards.
Are you going to that game?
I will not be going to the game.
I'll be there.
Do we have is there a Second Fanatic charter?
No.
What the hell, Williams?
Sorry.
But that's so it is cool when you look for the rest of the year and not trying to look too far ahead. But
12-0.
Okay, that's pretty far ahead. But
16-0.
Okay, it's very far ahead. But Iowa State this week against Texas Tech. Obviously, you have to take care of everything in front of you. Playing at Arrowhead, basically for a home game against Kansas, who does Kansas play this week?
They've got to buy.
They got to buy?
Don't like that, but
well, is Jaden Daniels going to get better at throwing?
I've heard he's been trying to throw left-handed. Him and McNamara have been in Phoenix working on their opposite hands.
Speaking of McNamara, and I think you obviously are very, very anti-Iowa, which is fine.
Me?
Yeah, fine. I try and watch most football through analyst glasses.
Don't tell me you watch Iowa.
I'm not actively rooting for or against because you can color it one way or the other.
I would rather watch Bob Ross paint than watch Iowa.
Well, that's okay. I would rather watch Leonardo da Vinci chisel something out of stone. Yeah, of course you're going to watch Bob Ross paint.
I'd rather watch a dog show.
I would rather watch. So you're now watching Michelangelo chip stuff out of stone.
Bluey. I'd rather watch Bluey.
Okay, again, you keep taking these good things that you'd rather watch. Of course you would. Bluey and dog shows and Bob Ross painting.
The Iowa game is not the only game on at that time, but you choose to watch that. That's torture.
Well,
that is you. Someone has you chained to a chair with your eyelids taped open and your head fixated straight ahead with the TV right there playing the Iowa game.
I have a television program on Saturdays where I talk about both Iowa and Iowa State. I need to be reasonably informed about Iowa.
Watch the highlights on YouTube afterwards. Don't put yourself through that.
But beyond that, I'm again analyst glasses on. McNamara not being comfortable on his legs was most of the problem. Where like not being able to step into a throw and then not being confident enough that if he did step into a throw, it was going to go where he wanted to. So every pass was underneath because I think he was just scared. Like he wasn't confident enough to actually pull the trigger. Then on Saturday, one of the plays that got him benched. Did you see this duck?
I don't watch Iowa football.
Even on the internet at some point somewhere.
No, I was golfing on Saturday. I surprised my buddy at we had a diaper party for him. So
That's fun.
We're golfing.
That's fun. Yeah. Well, anyway, so McNamara tries to step into like down the field like a post ball.
I did see this.
I think he was trying to throw it like on the hash, like 45, 50 yards down the field.
And it went like 12.
Thing went sideways spinning up in the air. And it was throw, then hit. So it's not like it was even his hand was hit in the way. And like analyst glasses on as best I can when that happened. And then so it got called back because it was a roughing the passer. And then later in that drive, he throws a pick six. And it was sort of like, Kirk, I understand that you really want to be loyal to guys because maybe he makes good decisions. Maybe the guys like him or whatever. But if you put him back out there,
I've already seen that Sullivan's for number 1 on the depth chart.
yeah, and McNamara's not even on the depth chart.
Oh, he's not. I didn't see
He's
that.
not even on the depth chart. They say he's quote injured, but I don't know if it's actually an injury. I think
That's
they might
hilarious.
just be, hey bud.
I did see this pass you're talking about. I did see that the laces were up. They were not even close.
Which is not the best, but it's fine.
But what are you doing, man? You can't throw it without the laces.
You can.
Try throwing with. I'm saying him.
Oh, him.
Try
Yeah.
throwing with the laces.
Yeah. It was so bad. That like just bud. And talk about like, Cam Rising being the lumpy old dog with no teeth.
If you had
that was a very similar thing where like that was one of those, as far as a quarterback metaphor of the old dog thing, like he had been the old dog for a while that needed some stairs, like to get up into his dog bed or whatever you have him sleep in or get up on the couch or whatever, or you have to pick him up or he has to use wet food. And then that duck followed by a pick six, he started shitting on the floor and like, it was running into walls because he couldn't see anything.
Where's
like
the diaper at all times?
That's one of those things where it's like, hey, it's been a good run, but buddy, we gotta stop this.
If you had to create the worst possible college football quarterback by using like this guy's legs, this guy's arms, this guy's accuracy, this guy's vision, who would you use and why would you only use Cam Rising and Cade McNamara?
I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna go down that road.
They're both not very good.
Well, yeah, they're just broken down parts, man. And it's like Alan Bowman, not Aiden. Is Aiden Bowman? Alan Bowman?
Aiden.
Whatever it is. There's a reason why they've been in school for 7 years. If the core
Get your NIL. I don't blame them. Get your NIL and a master's.
I think it was either Klatt or someone like that said that if you're a quarterback and you've been on your team for 7 years, that means the NFL doesn't want you. And if you're still around, then you have at best a love-hate relationship with your fans. So like that kind of feels like the situation that these guys are in, which would be even worse if Cam Rising was to come back one more time.
You know what's crazy about Alan Bowman?
Oh, it is Allen.
Yeah.
Who's Aiden Bowman?
I think he used to play for Iowa State.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right.
From what I'm seeing, I think Alan Bowman has only played in one bowl game.
Oh my God.
It only has the 2023 Texas Bowl.
Which would have been last year when they win the Big 12.
Maybe that's just...
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. I think he's only played in one bowl game.
And he got benched this year twice.
Yeah. So he was at Texas Tech and then Michigan.
Is Mike Gunny in the hot seat?
No.
Hot seat.
Hot seat. No, he is not on the hot seat in the same way that Ferentz isn't on the hot seat.
I could see Gunny just leaving, just saying, screw it, I'm done with this.
Go live in
He almost did like a year or two ago.
go live in a bunker with some canned meat.
Yeah.
Seems like that kind of guy.
He lived like at the top of a mountain in a cabin and just like walk out in the middle of the morning, just butt naked, just sipping his coffee as he's taking in the morning sun. Letting his mullet just flap in the wind.
Love to smell a bear shit in the morning. I feel like this has been the least productive show that we've ever had.
It's okay. It's a bye week.
It's bye week. The only other thing that I wanted to talk about, and Aiden, I'm sure you would be interested in talking about, is baseball. Grant's just sitting back and he's gonna leave it. I feel like that game one for the World Series, we talk mostly about sports here. That's kind of what the show is. Grant, you can leave if you want. It's just bathrooms across the way. It'll be about 5 minutes or
I
so.
watched a little bit of baseball this weekend.
That game one was one of the best best baseball games I've ever seen. That was one, star power in this game is great. We got Yankees, Dodgers. Two, the way that happened went from like everything that's good about modern baseball, and then the way that it ended is literally like, I think Joe Davis is the one that's on the call, the play-by-play for Fox with John Smoltz, which as far as baseball goes,
He's the best.
John Smoltz and Joe Davis are so good. They are so good. But how that game went, Joe Davis set it up so perfectly as Freddie Freeman was coming to bat. If you haven't seen it, like go watch the video. I don't know how you would have missed it at this point.
Yeah.
But he was, so basis context, the Yankees score 1 to go up 3-2 in the top of the 10th. So it's extra innings, World Series, Yankees, Dodgers at Dodger Stadium, sold out. Yankees go up 1. It's then They get an out, I think, and then the Dodgers get two runners on first and second. Shohei Ohtani comes up to bat. One out, men on first and second. Ohtani just tries to fight one off, pops one up to down the left field line. The left fielder for the Yankees, Verdugo, full sprint, catches it, hits the little short wall that's over by like between left field and where the like third base is, flips over the wall a la Derek Jeter, goes ass over tea kettle, gets back up, tries to throw it in, but I think they advanced the runners from second to third on that play. So now there's one open on first. Mookie Betts, who is a MVP in 2022, I think.
And he had a horrible batting average against Nestor Cortez, who was pitching for the Yankees. So it was like, looking back and all time,
yes,
don't intentionally walk Mookie Betts.
Don't intentionally walk Mookie Betts to get to Freddie Freeman, but they intentionally walk Mookie Betts. So at this point, Yankees. So I was watching this game in New York City. So my wife had a work conference so she had a conference on Thursday. So I'm watching this. It's Friday night, I think is when it was. Friday night was game 1. Saturday night was game 2. So Friday night's game 1. So I go out, we put it out of bed. Thursday, Friday, either way. So It was Thursday. It was Friday, Saturday, then Sunday off day. Tonight's game 3 as we record it. Yeah, that's what it was. So anyway,
I watched game 1 with my buddies, and it was Friday.
Yeah,
and then Saturday I was watching his garage.
But anyway, outside so our hotel was down where the Twin Towers were, and so where the reflecting pools are, and so there's it's almost like a mall, but it's also a transit hub. It's a really cool place called the Oracle. Oculus. That's what it is. The Oculus. Beautiful place. Well, right outside the Oculus, they had this big 25-foot outdoor screen with big old speakers, like sponsored by the MLB. So you're watching this game outside with Yankees fans in game 1 of the World Series. Everyone is juiced because they just go up 3-2, and then they get the best player in the world, Shohei Ohtani. They get him out. He's flipping over flips into the sides. They intentionally walk Mookie Betts, and Joe Davis has the perfect call, and he goes, bases loaded, bottom of the 10th, World Series game 1. This is the stuff you dream about. Every kid in their backyard sets this situation up. Freddie Freeman taps the plate once or twice or whatever. First pitch, fastball, grand slam to come down 1, 2 outs in the bottom of the 10th to win World Series game 1. It was like the most perfect thing about baseball. And as a big baseball fan, I couldn't have loved that more. But the hilarious experience was just going from Yankees fans losing their mind when they go up 3-2 and Ohtani getting out to the absolute silence of the entire crowd. The instant that ball left the bat, it went from cheering to being like a silent, deflated expletive from an entire group of New Yorkers. It was one, and I will never forget that experience.
Did you have audio for it, or have you seen a replay
of Joe Davis?
Yeah,
I haven't.
He called the game. He called the home run exactly how Vin Scully called the Kirk Gibson.
I don't believe what I just saw.
I have it pulled up just so I can get this right. She is gone. That's like Vin Scully when Kirk Gibson hit that. The pump in his fist around second base. He was running on one leg.
And also,
basically.
if we're talking about the Kirk Gibson, because that was the Yankees-Dodgers World Series, and in 1988, and then this was the Yankees-Dodgers World Series. Freddie Freeman has a bum ankle. The dude can barely run, and so he's gimping around. Kirk Gibson, the reason why that was so memorable back in the 80s, and it's 88 World Series, why that was so memorable is because he didn't play. He pinch hit because he was so injured that he couldn't even DH. He couldn't, the previous DH because it was the NL, but he couldn't play. He was so hurt, so they just pop him in, hits a walk-off home run as a pinch hitter. Freddie Freeman, 36 years later, does the same thing in just this moment that is beautifully unforgettable. It was such a cool moment. So it's a sports thing. Even if you're a casual baseball fan or you've ever been a baseball fan, this World Series is something to tune back into because it's so good.
It was just so cool for Joe Davis to be in the mind space to call it exactly how Vin Scully called it, however many years ago that was.
I imagine that he wasn't.
I mean, about
the physical location where he was making that call is probably feet from where Vin Scully was making that call, if any, because that was at Dodger Stadium. And then game 2 was also in game 1 for those that are interested. it was 0-0 going into the sixth with the two best, your game one starters. I think they each had at separate times retired like 14 straight batters, couldn't touch them, and then all of a sudden it just explodes. So this is I have to get a little baseball off my chest. So game 3 is tonight. I don't know what happens. It's first pitch is in like 30 minutes from right now that we're recording.
I know what happens.
No, you don't. Who wins?
The Yankees do 4-3.
Ooh, that'd be a good game. At this point, I'm rooting for the Yankees because I'm just rooting for baseball. And right now, Dodgers are up 2-0.
Aaron Judge gets out of his slump. I did see him strike out, and then when Freddie Freeman went up the next at bat, so much I watched a pitch of baseball until this weekend. Freddie Freeman steps up, and I'm playing a game with my buddies, and I look at the TV. I go, "Oh, Freddie Freeman, here comes a dinger," and he hit a home run. My buddy's like, "Dude, hey!"
That was game 2. That would have been game 2.
Yeah.
He hit a home run. They went back to back.
Yeah.
But this Aaron Judge, man, this is really devolving.
He's a large human.
He's 6'8", playing center field. I think the book is out on him though. Like this is when everything just gets tighter. And to bring this back a little bit to Iowa State, there is going to be some stuff as you get later in the season similar to this. Now, Aaron Judge versus Giancarlo Stanton, which Aiden, do you have as much fun from watching Giancarlo Stanton bat as I do?
When he is at his best, he is the most fun player to watch in baseball.
And Juan Soto, both of those guys.
I'm future Cub Juan Soto.
Have you guys seen Ichiro play? He's pretty exciting.
He was pretty exciting in 2001.
He's done.
Yep. But I described a buddy of mine is a Yankees fan, and I was texting him. It looks like when Giancarlo Stanton, he's like 6'4", like 230 of just like brick house muscle.
Just absolute man meat.
Man meat.
Do you know what his real name is?
What?
Mike.
No.
Michael.
Yeah.
He changed it like a decade ago. I knew that.
His name Michael.
Yeah, but if you have Giancarlo
and Mike
back
When he
Stanton.
played for the Marlins.
Wasn't Mike Stanton a pitcher too? But anyway, you get when he's in the dugout, he looks like a tiger that they're just like parading goats in front of his cage, and he's just like, open the goddamn door. Like that's sort of the vibe that you get off. And if you haven't watched Juan Soto, again, future Cub, potentially.
Future Cub.
And
if he's not, he's the worst baseball player I've ever seen. Future Cub. Just going to get in front of that.
The dude stares down everyone. It's so much fun. When like a pitch goes by, he'll just like look at it and just stare down the catcher or the pitcher and just like nod at him like, yeah, I see what you're trying to do. It's just, he is like a guy who had way too much caffeine and then put him in the batter's box.
What do you suppose Mike / Giancarlo Stanton's diet consists of?
Raw fish, nothing but just eat it, catch it with your bare hands.
Pork.
No.
He eats raw pork is what he does.
Raw pork. He just shits a lot.
Yep.
You want to cook your pork. You want to make sure if you get your Iowa Pork Producers pork, cook it thoroughly. Don't.
Not if you're Giancarlo Stanton.
Not if you're Giancarlo Stanton.
He's out there taking his pork chops and just
Not eating the bone. That's what we'll do. Just eat the bone fully. Thank you to the Iowa Pork Producers. We appreciate you. We'll have more Iowa State football content, but to bring this back from Giancarlo Stanton to Iowa State and Aaron Judge. So Judge and Stanton are facing the same thing. Great offensive players, but they know by this time in the season, opponents know what they like and what they don't like. Stanton is able to then take what pitchers are giving him and still work with it. Judge hasn't adapted yet. By the time Iowa State gets into these really critical games towards the end of the year, the book will more or less be out. We know what Iowa State's good at because we're Iowa State fans. We know what Iowa State's bad at because we're Iowa State fans. As this season compiles and the roster sets to where the roster is going to be, when you get to even Utah, as good as their defense is, their offense is bad, but the book's going to be out on Iowa State. Are they going to be able to adjust? Or are they going to be able to, or they're not going to be able to, and they'll have to start to falter a little bit because the pressure will start to ramp up game after game after game after game. And that'll be interesting to see how they handle it because this is uncharted territory for all of Iowa State at football. Just again, it's never happened. If Iowa State wins, they're 8-0, like you said, for the first time in football history for this program. So it'll be interesting how they handle pressure as they get going.
put your house on it.
That they handle pressure well?
That they're going to go 8-0.
If someone loses that bet, do they take the points?
I'll buy you a new house.
Okay, Grant said it.
There you go.
Grant's great.
That's all I've got.
That's all I got too. I got my baseball in.
Yeah.
It's sad. The World Series will likely be over by the time we record next week. Probably. Maybe there's like a game 7.
Is that sad?
It is sad. Dick.
You know what's sad is I couldn't take a longer nap.
Game 7's on Saturday.
If there's, I would record that. That's the case.
How awesome is the World Series though? Just doing it all within a week.
Of just mashing it in.
Because like
It's 8 days.
the NBA playoffs are way too long.
Yeah, they are.
It's like 3 months, but with baseball, it's like, let's go. we don't got time for this. We got to go.
Come on now.
I do like back to back, like Friday, Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever.
Because it's 2-2-1-1-1, right? Is I think the series format is good, or is it?
I haven't watched.
2-3-2.
Really, it's 2-3-2.
That's what ESPN is showing.
Okay, it's
I
probably
haven't
2-3 because that would get you done in 8 days.
I've watched
Yeah.
baseball consistently since the Cubs won the World Series.
This would be a good series to tune into. If you're reasonably interested in baseball at all, this would be a good series to tune into.
It's so rare to get two of like the actual best teams in terms of like
And the most fun
players.
teams,
Yeah.
like and also at Yankee Stadium, because it's a home run park. All the walls are short. Like, there's going to be a
fraud park.
For it, you
all
can
Yankees fan listening out there.
a lot of home runs at
porch.
Yankee Stadium because it's teeny tiny everywhere.
Sorry, I've got Bob Ross reruns I got to get caught up on. I'm just a hater.
Happy little clouds.
I might check it out. Sure, we'll see.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, my team is the Marlins and the A's. So rest in peace. To the
Oh
A's.
boy,
They were the T-ball teams I played on. So
true. Well, you can pick up your teams early.
that's all I've got. So I want to thank you to all of our loyal listeners who are still listening. Next time you tune in, we'll be your 8-0 Cyclones for the first time ever back into the top 10. Remember, adopt, don't chop.